to Jacob, our son. In today's digital age where every minute detail of your life can be plastered over social media, from what you've had for lunch to revealing to the world your new terrible hairstyle, you may find it a little odd that there are no pictures, scans, or even the slightest mention of mummy carrying you while you're in her tummy. So in celebration of your christening, I'd like to reveal the greatest true story I've ever had the pleasure of telling. The story of you. And it all starts at the seaside in Weston-super-Mare. April is a very busy month for your mum and I, with no fewer than 5 birthdays within the family, which means that we may have one weekend where we can relax in between trying to see everyone. You also know by now that your parents are happiest when they are in their favourite part of the world, which we try to get to whenever we can. So with Sunday the 22nd of April 2018 looking to be a good day for a trip out, we decided to head off to Breen for a long walk along the beach and then on to Weston for a relaxing time along the promenade before starting another full week at work. But your mama had been suffering from bellyache since the Friday before and it wasn't going away. I did ask if she still really wanted to go the night before, to which she answered yes very determinedly. I've learnt over the years not to argue with her when she answers a question like that. And so at around 8:30 in the morning we set off down the M5 motorway for a fun day out. And a fun day out we had. In Breen we walked along the beach and popped into a couple of the arcades before heading up the coast to Weston-super-Mare where we strolled around the shops, walked up to the old pier and back, then went on to the new pier to even more arcades. Your dad is a gamer after all, and your mother is very tolerant of this. And we finished up in Nando's for a bit of spicy chicken before making our way home. The drive home was pretty uneventful until we were about 20 minutes away from the house. It was at this point that your mum's tummy ache was getting so bad she couldn't even sit in the passenger seat comfortably. So as soon as we got back, she went straight inside to do the only thing which had eased her backache up until this point, having a nice hot shower. I popped on my PC to kill some time while waiting for her to come back down so we could watch TV for the rest of the night, but about half an hour later I suddenly heard a very loud groan from Mama over the sound of the video I was watching on YouTube through my headphones. So I sprung up and went to the kitchen to see your mother, hands clasped to the kitchen workshop with a vice-like grip, bent over in pain. I asked if she had managed to have a hot shower yet, to which she replied yes, but it had not helped in the slightest. This concerned me. It was 10:30 on a Sunday night and your mum, who can usually take being ran into by women twice her size, it's a rugby thing, was creased up and close to sobbing, something I've never seen her do in the long time we'd been together. Naturally I wanted to take her to hospital, but she was insistent on phoning 111 to see what the operator had to say. And after another 10 minutes of wincing in pain and answering questions, we were instructed to go to our nearest A&E department. After a fraught drive to hospital and eventually finding a parking space, I helped your mother into the hospital where we were booked in quickly by the receptionist and asked to find a seat among the sea of aches, pains, breaks and cuts. It was here, sitting in the waiting room watching the occasional nurse come to the front and calling someone else's name, when I really started to worry. Your parents were both prone to being ill every so often, but since being together none of us had been particularly ill to the point where we needed to go to hospital. But here we were. While I was caught up in this whirlwind of thoughts and emotions, I noticed a nurse who hadn't reared her head at the front of the waiting room before make a beeline for Mama and then proceed to help her through the doors to a cubicle where another gaggle of nurses were waiting for her. The next moment I'll remember for the rest of my life. A slightly older nurse compared to the others whirling around approached us and asked, "So are you ready to have your baby?" Our response, almost in unison, was, "What?" All the sounds of the emergency room drained from our ears whilst we thought about both the question being asked and the response we were going to give. Thankfully we weren't given a lot of time to fully take in the moment, or let the blind panic set in, as it was at this point your mum's water broke and we were escorted to a birthing suite. She was definitely pregnant and she was definitely going to give birth. Now I'm not going to bore you with all the grisly details about your entrance to the world, but I will tell you the one moment I hold dear to me which changed my life in an instant. Something which usually would have happened weeks or maybe months before that night. Everything was moving along smoothly, so the doctors wanted to keep an eye on you both to make sure there were no problems as things progressed. After all, 2 hours ago we didn't even know you were coming. and I remember this big black elasticated band being put around your mum's belly. Then the midwife plugged this little connector into the monitor behind her, and bam! There it was. Your heartbeat. You were here. It was real. That was the happiest and scariest moment I've ever felt all at once in my entire life, and I think under different circumstances those two feelings might have come on separate occasions. But we were on the clock, so we just had to get it all over with in one foul swoop. I wish I could say from here on in it was all smooth sailing for you and your mother, but due to a complication that arose after Mama had been hard at work pushing you out after 5 hours, you were taken to an operating theatre where they had the right instruments to help your mum help you come into the world. And then it happened. One dramatic pull from the doctor later, and this purpley blue blob was plopped onto Mummy's stomach. For a second there was a stillness in the room. Then you wailed like a banshee, and I knew everything was going to be alright. It was at this point, with tears in her eyes, Mama said, "I want to call him Jacob." And considering the amount of physical and mental punishment she had just been under for the last 6 hours, I didn't think I was in a position to argue with her. Jacob it was. After that, you were taken over to the side to be weighed and cleaned up a little, and I was ushered in the same direction. Whilst there, you were wrapped up in a white towel, as we had no clothes for you, then put into my arms and I held you for the first time. I gave you a little rub on your chest with my finger and welcomed you to the world. Then a magical thing happened which I'll never forget. You moved your hand up out of the towel you were wrapped in and clasped my finger so tightly. And I knew in that second we would all be fine. More than that, I knew everything would work out great. And then my phone alarm went off telling me I had to get up for work. Your dad had a lot of phone calls to make that day to inform everyone of the news, but thankfully he had a practice run with Grandma and Gramps when I called them in the middle of the night to tell them that their daughter was having a surprise baby. And I was met with the same response by most of them. Silence, followed by me having to repeat myself as they were sure I couldn't have just said we were parents to a bouncing baby boy. Then, with both families informed, I went straight back into hospital to be with you. Now, due to your sudden arrival under unique circumstances, the doctors rightly wanted to keep you in for a couple of days to make sure everything was okay. After all, you and your mum had been through quite a lot. But this gave me time to transform the house into a space fit for a baby, which meant going on a couple of expensive shopping trips to make sure we had everything you and Mama could possibly need when you came home. But that wasn't the only thing taking up my time that week, as I was also attending to as many of Mummy's needs as possible, which couldn't be done by the doctors and nurses. As a side note, I recorded this bit on the day you came out of hospital, and at this precise moment, due to having my hands full and recording at the same time on my phone, I may have left the side lights of my car on and drained the battery, which meant your Gramps had to come and give me a bump start. Not the best way to start the day of you coming out of hospital, but never mind. There was also one other small thing which happened at the start of that week, and it was all down to an innocent Facebook post. As I said before, your mother and I love travelling down to our favourite place by the sea, Weston-super-Mare. Well, when the sea is in, that is. And because of your sudden arrival after a trip there, I thought it would be nice to post a few pictures of our day out and then of what we came home to, namely you, on a fan page, and the post blew up. It had over 200 likes and lots of people congratulating us and welcoming you to the world. But more interestingly, a lady who worked for a radio station in Bristol wanted to do an interview with me on the morning show, which led to even more radio interviews, online articles, and even appearing on the local TV news programme. It was an exciting time for everyone. But more importantly, it meant we all have something to look back on from when you were born, seeing as we have no scans or photos we can show you from when you were growing in mama's tummy. This is one of the reasons why I've decided to make this little film, so you have at least a few things to look back at when you're older, and also to give me something I can embarrass you with in front of your mates and any partners you may bring home to introduce to your family. And while we're on the subject, it's thanks to our families that we were able to transition from two adults who only had to look after ourselves to a mum, dad and baby so easily in such a short space of time. Everyone pulled together to make sure everything we would usually have had done well before you came along was taken care of as quickly as possible, with your christening being the last thing to tick off the list and the first time everyone has been together to celebrate you. Sadly, there are some members of the family you'll never have the opportunity to meet, but know that through the love and guidance they showed your mum and I from an early age has helped mould who we have become, and in turn we try to honour their memory by being the best parents we can be to you. I'm certain they would have loved you very much. So you were here. After 5 days of being in hospital, you were given the all clear and allowed home. By the time I had finished my 2-week break from work, we had everything we could possibly need, including a new car, and with that we could all settle into our new life as a family. And what a fantastic first 16 months it has been. You've been on holiday twice, you've seen lots of animals at zoos and farms, and loads of fish at different aquariums, you have paddled in the sea and made your first sandcastle, well, with a little help from your old man, and you've high-fived Santa. You've tried many different foods and drink and you've liked them all, except Marmite, and you've ridden on trains, in cars, on buses, with even the occasional float on a parachute and spin on a teacup. You've played on swings, in ball pits, on slides and bouncy castles, and even rode a rocket to the moon. You have changed so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to watch you grow and experience things for the first time, and I look forward to the many, many happy times ahead. Although we missed the first 9 months of when you were in mama's belly, I promise you'll never be overlooked again. I promise that whenever and wherever you fall, we'll be there to pick you back up. Whenever you're unsure, we'll be there to offer advice and direction. When the monsters under the bed keep you awake at night, we'll be there to chase them all away and make room in our bed for you to feel safe. Whenever you call out for us, we'll be there to answer. We promise to not only allow you to experience all that life can offer you as you grow up, but actively encourage you to pursue all that you are passionate about. But I have some things I'd like you to try to do too. Be kind and considerate, but don't allow yourself to be taken advantage of. Respect others, and the ones which are worth their salt will respect you back. The ones that don't aren't worth your time or attention in thought or action. Remember that manners maketh the man, and learn how to keep a promise and a secret. Speak your mind, but watch your words, they can leave a mark. Never be ashamed to dance, and never be ashamed to cry. Stand by your convictions, but be open to opinions. Choose your battles wisely, and never be ashamed to walk away. Give credit and take the blame whenever earned. Be confident and humble at the same time. But most of all, and one I think you have mastered at such a young age already, be happy.
Congratulations, and Jacob, welcome aboard.